Hi, I'm Bob. Let's continue our solutions to 5.4 Deriving Labor Supply Curves in the textbook Microeconomics Theory and Applications with Calculus, the 5th edition by Professor Jeffrey Perloff. Here's exercise 4.7. Today, most developed countries have progressive income taxes. Under such a taxation program, is the marginal tax higher than, equal to, or lower than the average tax? A tax system that is progressive applies higher tax rates to higher levels of income. For example, if the marginal tax rate is T1 equals 10% on the first $10,000 earned, and T2 equals 20% on the second $10,000, then the consumer who earns $20,000 will pay a tax of $1,000 on the first $10,000 of earnings and $2,000 on the second $10,000 of earnings. Her average tax rate, T bar, equals 15%. We have this relationship. Let's do exercise 4.8. As of 2015, at least 41 countries, including most of the formerly centrally planned economies of Central and Eastern Europe and Eurasia, use a flat personal income tax, so that if each person is allowed a personal deduction whereby the first $10,000 earned by the person is untaxed, the flat tax can be a progressive tax in which rich people pay a higher average tax rate than poor people. Suppose the flat personal income tax rate is 10%. For a lower income person with an annual income of $20,000, he pays a tax of $10,000 times 10% equals $1,000. His average income tax rate is 1,000 divided by 20,000, which equals 5%. For a high-income person with an annual income of $100,000, she pays a tax of 90,000 times 10% equals $9,000. Her average tax rate is 9,000 divided by 100,000, which equals 9%. The rich people pay a higher average tax rate than poor people. Let's solve exercise 4.9. George views leisure as a normal good. He works at a job that pays W an hour. Use a labor-leisure analysis to compare the effects on the hours he works from a marginal tax rate on his wage, V, or lump sum tax, T. If the per hour tax is used, he works 10 hours and earns 1 minus V times 10 times W. The government sets T equals V times 10 times W so that it collects the same amount of money from either tax. Which tax is likely to reduce George's hours of work more and why? The budget constraint without tax is the dashed line with a slope of minus W. L1 is the budget constraint with the per hour tax. Its slope is minus 1 minus V times W. His optimal bundle is E1, where L1 is tangent to the indifference curve I1. He works 10 hours. The lump sum tax of T shifts the original dashed budget line downward, and it goes through the bundle E1. The budget constraint with the lump sum tax is L2. He can choose bundle E2 on a higher indifference curve I2. Comparing bundles E1 and E2, he works more under the lump sum tax. In other words, the marginal tax reduces his hours of work more. Let's find answers to exercise 4.10. The researcher argued that US employees work 50% more than German, French, and Italian employees because European employees face lower marginal tax rates. Assuming that workers in all four countries have the same tastes toward leisure and goods, must it necessarily be true that US employees work longer hours? Use graph to illustrate your answer and explain why it is true or is not true. Does the researcher's evidence indicate anything about the relative sizes of the substitution and income effects? Why or why not? We use the budget constraint indifference curve diagram for labor-leisure choice to illustrate the answer. L1 is the budget constraint with a lower marginal income tax rate, such as the European countries. L2 is the budget line with a higher tax rate, like in the US. Using the imaginary budget line L star, we decompose the total effect of an effective wage fall or a tax rate increase into a substitution effect and an income effect. The movement from N1 to N star is the substitution effect because of the drop in the leisure's price. People consume more leisure and work less. The movement from N star to N2 is the income effect. The drop in the effective wage leads to a fall in purchasing power, and people consume less leisure. The total effect is from N1 to N2. People consume more leisure and work fewer hours when the marginal tax rate increases. This is the case when leisure is a normal good and the substitution effect dominates the income effect. This is what the diagram illustrates. If the size of the income effect is larger than the size of the substitution effect, then people work more hours when the marginal tax rate increases. It is not necessarily true that US workers with a higher tax rate work longer hours. The evidence that they work longer hours indicates the size of the income effect is larger than the size of the substitution effect. Let's solve exercise 4.11. Originally, Julia could work as many hours as she wanted at a wage of W. She chose to work 12 hours per day. Then, her employer told her that in the future she may work as many hours as she wants, up to a maximum of 8 hours. How does her optimal choice between leisure and goods change? Does this change hurt her? We also use the budget constraint indifference curve diagram for leisure-labor choice to analyze the problem. Her original optimal bundle is E1, where her budget constraint L1 is tangent to to the indifference curve I1. She works 12 hours per day. The work hour limit makes her budget lie much shorter. It is the blue part. The optimal bundle is the corner solution E2, where her new budget line touches the highest possible indifference curve I2. She works 8 hours per day. At bundle E2, she has more leisure but fewer goods than before. The change hurts her because she is on a lower indifference curve. Let's solve exercise 4.12. Using calculus, show the effect of a change in the wage on the amount of leisure that an individual wants to consume. We can write out the budget constraint as W times leisure N plus Y equals the earnings if working 24 hours. The leisure's price is W. The Slutsky equation is as follows. Notice that partial income over partial wage is work hours, H. For a wage increase, the substitution effect is negative and the income effect is positive. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.